We'll be having our next session on ICT and environmental sustainability. We have with us Mr. Raj Bhagat. He has a background in GIS, remote sensing, and civil engineering. He's currently working with the World Resource Institute India, and he works on the fields of urban development, water resources, and transport since 2015. He has also been involved in creating multiple models using machine learning and big data to predict urbanization in India. Current portfolio of Raj projects include monitoring and understanding of characteristics of urbanization in India, their effects on ecosystems, and a tool for cities water assessment. Thank you, Mr. Raj, for being with us here. We also have with us Miss Monmi Barua. She is an associate fellow at the Energy and Resources Institute, New Delhi, and is currently leading the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network, Youth South Asia, as the network coordinator. She has 7 years of work experience in the field of environment and sustainability, and also led projects on environmental awareness, including interactive sessions, seminars, and conferences. She has been focal in spreading knowledge and promoting networking of like-minded individuals in the field of sustainable development. Thank you, Ms. Monmi, for being with us here.
Thank you, Priyanka.
Over to you. Hello.
Hi, Priyanka. Sorry. Right now, I have to start, or Monmi is going to start?
Yeah, please go ahead, sir.
Oh, okay, fine, great. Thanks for the intro, and thanks for having me here. And so I'll just show a small slideshow that I have and what I do, and from that perspective, I'll try to share my screen right now.
Yes, sir,
just let me know once the screen is. Is it coming up or?
Yes, sir,
Okay.
it's visible.
Yeah, great. Okay, great. Thanks. Thank you. Okay, I'll just go ahead with my presentation, and I'll just talk a little bit on what we do. I'm not going to give any kind of advices on what should be done. I'll just say what we are doing, and from that you can have your own opinion. I know that people around here, everyone has their own baggage and everything on their ideologies and everything. And with that perspective, I'll just talk a little bit on data-driven cities. So why we are focusing on it. So one big aspect that when we talk about entire thing about environment or governance or anything about livability, there's a lot of subjective nature that is coming into play. Each one has their opinion. As I said, everyone has their opinion, everyone has their baggage, and the problem is most of the decision makers and the key influencers like us, we are the elite population in this country. So we make decisions from our standpoint, and whatever it is, if it is about environment or if it is about consumption, we talk about from our perspective, where we are coming from a privilege, and we are trying to talk about things which are blocking someone else, aspirations to become one of the privileged person. So to avoid that, we have been working in what is called as the data-driven cities, data-driven decision-making in general. And since I work in the cities program, we call it as the data-driven cities. So in this entire presentation, I'll just talk about what we are doing and why we are doing it. And with that, it would be very, I think that would be very helpful for you. Okay. So I work with WRI India, and what we do is basically it's a research organization, which is also actually, it functions like research to action. That is, we don't stop but just academic research. We take it to the government. We try to build policies. We try to build some kind of a law around certain things so that, useful research are being used for public welfare. That is our entire concept. And, our entire thinking is not just environment. We talk about economic opportunity, livability in particular. So I work in the cities program, and in particular, we call it the geoanalytics. My team is called as the geoanalytics. What we do and what is our vision is that we try to make our cities, they make lots of planning and governance decisions, and we want to make them economically competitive, environmentally sustainable, and equitable. But for these to happen, we use a lot of data, tools, and models. Okay. So why we need to do that? As I said, we are coming from very subjective opinions, and there are huge whitewashes from our biases, and from those inherent biases, we make policies and governance decisions, and it is actually affecting a lot of population. So when I talk about bias, it could be anything. For example, if I ask you a straightforward question, do you think the number of trees in your city has reduced over time, or whether it has reduced or increased? And I'm sure that 99% of the population is going to respond that it has reduced. Now, with respect to both from the psychological terms as well as the data terms, that is not true. What we have is a problem of, like, say, for example, we are losing natural vegetation, and we have had a exponential growth of artificial vegetation. Now, that is our problem. But we are coming from a bias that entire vegetation aspect of our cities are coming down, or that kind of a thought process will be there. So these biases will affect our policy making. So to avoid that, we come with a lot of data, we come with evidence, and we try to make sure that there is no such bias, but we try to make sure that it is when these kind of biases are addressed. So how do we do that? Is that we use a lot of tools. We use remote sensing. If you are not aware of remote sensing, it's satellite information, or it could be aerial information. We take lots of photographs, images, and those kind of information. We use a lot of geographic information, GIS tools. We use a lot of big data. When I talk about big data, we don't talk about the personal data. I'm not concerned about your Facebook searches or that kind of thing, but we are looking at traffic volumes and that kind of overall generic data that is not personalized. And we take a lot of machine learning and AI algorithms, and then what we do with it is we build research, we build prototype tools, we create future scenario models, and we create policies, and we do capacity building for the governmental agencies. And what we are expecting out of it is that we have an integrated planning approach where people are making decisions based on information, and that is there. And we are also expecting that will improve transparency and make it more rigid. The process will be more transparent and everything. And we are also looking at, I personally don't want anyone to replicate, depend on me for all these analysis or anything like that. So we are looking at independent future replication. That is, someone else is able to replicate our ideas, etc., without our support itself. That is one of our goals. So this is our overall approach. So how does it happen? Say, for example, this is, I have lots of slides which are focusing towards Bangalore so that I can keep context in a single thing, but we are focusing on multiple cities. But for the presentation's sake, I'll just show lots of Bangalore. So this is, for example, is a small satellite town that is being built up next to next to Bangalore. It's called Chikbalapura. So when we are talking about, when a planning decision is being made on what place should be developed, whether there is, the ecosystem effects of it, etc., etc. There's a lot of things that go on in the master plan process. And that's where we intervene. We bring lots and lots of data, which are, if you're aware, India is a data deficit country. Useful data, we have a deficiency of useful data. When I say, like, for example, how many villages are there, or how much urbanization has happened, these kind of useful information that is required for decision making, India is lacking it. So that is where I fill the gap of producing this data with respect to it can be temperature, it can talk about how surface water has declined or increased, or whatever it is, how vegetation has changed over time. All these information I bring in, lots and lots of information we bring in around. For example, in a single planning process, we bring around 200 to 300 decision-making layers. And then we talk to the government officials, like in the photograph in the bottom, we have the stakeholder engagement, we talk about it, we say why these are critical, etc., along with lots of interpretation from our side as well, on how do we make sure that there is no bias and all these kind of things. So I'll show some sample applications. You can judge us with that. My entire thought is to ignite your thought process with respect to usage of this data and make sure that lots of informed decision making is done. So I'll show some sample applications I had. Sorry, I had lots of samples, but I had to delete it just because of the shortness of the presentation. Say, for example, the first instance I work in the cities program, I talk a lot about urbanization and how growth has been happening, how built up area has been increasing over time, and which places are are the places for the next urbanization. I mean, next places for urbanization, etc., etc. Because these are going to play huge amount of effects on both your livability as well as your environment and the entire thing around. How do we do that? I mean, we know that some peripheries are expanding. We know that some places are growing, etc., etc. But when it comes to governance decisions, it has to be very clear about where, when, how, why, and what is guiding it, right? So only then you will be able to make informed decisions, right? So for that, we start with satellite images. And how do we get these satellite images? Of course, there are lots of governmental as well as private programs to that own satellites. They send the signals back to the receiving stations, and then it is hosted in a server, and then we process it in the entire background. And finally, we have to have this entire pipeline set up so that at the end you get useful information out of it, and we try to make it as minimalist as possible, and so that only the useful information is arriving at the desk of a decision maker. So in this map, what you see over here, there will be lots of maps, as I love maps personally. So you'll see a lot of maps over this. In this map, what you see over here is how built up has been adding in Delhi over time. For example, in one time period, you can see Gurgaon growing, and in another time period, you can see Noida growing, Noida and Greater Noida. And in this, so these are very critical for our planning, as I said. So we didn't stop at Delhi, by the way. We did for the entire country, and we were also trying to figure what is guiding this growth. Why are people preferring this particular place over another particular place? So as you know, that there are lots of these different types of urbanization. I mean, what is causing it? It can be just because the neighboring, it is the peripheries of a city, the border area or something like that, and or it might be a special economic zone or a new project, an airport or something like that, or it could be a highway, a railway station, or sometimes the presence of a big city will cause the growth in a little bit far, but a neighboring town, etc. So we wanted to study all these factors that govern our urban process, and we used lots of machine learning methodologies to come up with this, and we did for the entire country, how much, where, which ones, what is guiding what. And because why does this matter is that a good amount of urbanization that is happening around outside the municipal limits or in the neighboring town or along the highways, these are unplanned growth. Now, unplanned growth has a huge effect on environment. So this is coming from that aspect. We wanted to know how much of it is planned, how much of it is unplanned, how much are we ready for, and then what would be the future looking like? If this is 2019, then how would it look at 2050, and how much people would be there, and what are we looking at? So, so in that case, like how do we provision services? So services can be a lot of these services, like whether they are having access to water, access to green space, access to jobs, education, etc., etc. There are so many things that come into our mind. So from that perspective, it is very critical to understand these processes. I mean, we are seeing so much of ecological effects of these kind of urbanization, particularly with the unplanned one, even with the planned one in India for that matter. But but the unplanned growth is causing even more, effects. I'll show some cases, for example. So say in this case, this is between Shadara and Loni in Delhi. You can see in the left side, there's a small satellite image that shows this neighborhood, and you can see that it's absolutely devoid of vegetation. And there is, I mean, when I say vegetation, we don't have natural vegetation at all. What we have is few pockets of artificial vegetation, and there is absolutely no ecological balance in this kind of a place. So there are many such places. You can say that some of them are illegal. You can say that these are the things, but how do we go about it? If it is illegal, you can't go and just evict it, right? You can't just go and evict these people. These are people living over there, millions and millions of people living over there. And we are coming from a very privileged position. But so anyway, I'm not going to talk about that in detail, but these kind of where and how do we address it is, so these are the two aspects, right? So I bring in the where aspect, where, when, what is happening. And then how do we intervene in this? So how do we, should we increase roadside, green areas, or how do we go about it is the second part of it. So we have, we have extensive stakeholder consultations on how do we do this, etc., etc. From that perspective, it's not just the presence of trees, but also whether you are having access to public access to parks and that kind of an accessible green. That is, you might have tree in your house, but what about the park? Where do kids can go and play, etc., etc. So we began using a lot of these models and transport models, as well as open street networks. Then we used satellite images to figure out all the parks, and we correlated with tax information to figure out the plot areas and everything. So we began coming out with information like how many people are having access to parks and which are the places that are having deficiency in such kind of access, and we wanted to put them. So for example, in this map in Bangalore, you can see that the right side, the Whitefield and that area, you can see that publicly accessible parks are almost nothing. So this is where we need intervention. So we are making sure that the resources are well spent. So we can't just, someone can't come with statistics and say that, there are lots of parks in Bangalore, but those are all contained in the central parts of Bangalore, and in the peripheries where the city is expanding, there is absolutely nothing. Where the new population are coming in, there is absolutely nothing. So this is why we make sure that the statistics are represented in a proper way, by bringing lots of these kind of visuals and that kind of information. So the other aspect what we talk about normally is heat, which places are facing heat and how they are doing it. All these are right now, all these are done in cloud computing, by the way. If you want to figure out where, etc., etc. So we constantly monitor for 20 cities in India for temperatures and which are the hotspots and which are the neighborhoods that are facing heat. For example, you can see on the left side certain aspects like Kalaspalayam in Bangalore. If you are aware of Bangalore's geography, Kalaspalayam is having a very less amount of vegetation as well as high amount of heat, and certain places like a richer neighborhood like say Jayanagar or Langford town, they are much having lesser temperatures kind of thing. So why this is critical, because there are lots of heat waves as well as stroke related death. Right now Mumbai, we are focusing a little bit on Mumbai because there is this October heat season, and where we have lots of this, the rich can afford an AC or they can do whatever they want. They can have as many fans or whatever it is. But a poorer person, how are they going to tackle this heat? And there will be added, so in the Mumbai case and all, we were studying a little bit more on roofing materials, etc., etc. There are so much depth. So we take this information and we try to provide more information to the decision makers. Similarly, one other aspect that we want to do is on flood, etc. Which are the places? So we are using in the left side, what you can see is a model that predicts where floods will happen. And in the right side top, we have a monitoring setup which talks about which are the areas that are affected by floods. And then after that, we try to figure out what is the intervention, what are the infrastructure that is being placed, etc., etc. Those kind of information we try to bring out using these models. This is pretty key because when the city like Bangalore is growing, it is taking, I mean, we are looking at what are the potential areas of flooding and what is happening in these places, whether we are building more, etc. So 15% of the new urbanization that happened in Bangalore is actually happening over these kind of critical areas. With respect to the critical areas, 86% within the corporation have been destroyed. So that means, for example, this is in the left side, what you see is a predicted area of flooding. And on the right side is an event that happened last, I think this was 2 weeks ago or something, when Manyata Tech Park was flooded. So it was, so right now we are able to predict what is going to happen and where it is going to happen. And slowly we are building on solutions like what we can do about it. So I'm not going to talk a little on any of those what to do because for each one it is a very specific localized problem and we have localized solutions. We are not talking at global solutions because 90% of the issues that we talk about are very much localized. And how do we overcome these issues? This is what I come from. So these slides are just to give you some samples on how we are trying to predict events, how we are trying to solve those, etc. And as I said, I'm not going to give any yarn on what you should do about it, but this is the idea that I come from. We make objective decisions, not subjective ones, and we try to make sure that there is a whole set of process around it, rather than someone just coming, an influential person coming in and saying that do this, do that, etc. So this is how I use technology in doing these kind of some samples anyways. With this, I'm stopping the presentation. I hope I'm within time. So if you have any questions related to it, or if you want to know more about it, I can. Any thoughts, any questions? If you.
So we do have questions in the chat. So I'll just read one quickly.
Okay.
I'll read out the last one. When you talk about interventions, what way interventions are made?
Sorry, what?
There's one question that says, when you talk about interventions, what way interventions are made?
So as I said, yeah, okay, good question. Actually, what way? Actually, there is no single solution for any of these problems. Say, for example, in case of flooding, for greenfield development, that is, if a development is coming in a new area, then we have set of solutions for it. And if it is going to be a brownfield one, that is, if we are talking about areas that have already developed, then we come up with a certain set of solutions. Now, what are these solutions? Say, for example, in case of flooding, we are looking at for greenfield, we are looking at protection of floodplains, as well as first is identification of floodplains. Actually, there is no right now we don't have any flood-prone area atlas for the entire country in India. So the first step is to produce that kind of an atlas to figure out which are the areas that are prone to flooding. And second is, within this areas that are going to flood, how are we going to disincentivize this new construction? Say, for example, it could be a insurance, or whether it could be this is insurance is one aspect, and the second aspect is with respect to land pooling schemes. We are talking about town planning schemes actually. So I mean, in the sense, we don't want to block development for in a particular place, because these are not necessarily illegal. Okay, they are some of them are legal. Legal constructions. These are privately owned land which could be used as flood buffers, but we can't say that one person can develop and another person can't develop just because they are in this kind of place, because that will affect the aspirations of the local population. So what we do normally is a town planning scheme. That is, we ask everyone to pool land, and then we reallocate it so that, I mean, this also increases lots of services. You can go through the WRI India publications on land pooling schemes, that is land pooling and town planning schemes. It is already in the open domain. Why we do it and how to do it in particular. So that is for greenfield. In brownfield cases, what we are looking at is figuring out which are the best places for recharge and which are the best places for an engineering solution and a non-engineering solution, like say bioswales or wetland improvement and those kind of aspects. So as I said, there is no single pill that we are going to give. It depends on the context we take in. When we take a particular case, we try to fit in with the respective, an equivalent case, a typological case, and then from that we figure out which is the best solution and we give it. And then the most important aspect of it is that we bring in a democratic process. We are not going to just influence government. We bring in lots of stakeholders. And the solution has to be made by the public and not by just an IAS officer or that kind of a thing, right? So we are facilitating the entire process of enabling through data. That is the most critical aspect of it, because and we are just making sure that everything is environmental and equitable as well. So we are not going to just say that please evict X person because they are living in a problematic area or something like that. So we try to bring it in a more equitable and a more, we have to understand people's aspirations. That is more critical. So I hope that answers that. As I said, I don't have a single answer for the solution. It is going to be a lot of these different aspects. I mean, it depends on this geography. And since we work on 20 cities in India, we have different solutions for different places.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. Just one more question for you. How willing and motivated are the local governments to act on this available data?
Another interesting question, but yeah, so it is always a problematic one. As I said, there are two issues that come out of it. One is legit fear of losing control. That is right now, since it is a very subjective process, nobody is going to question it. I mean, if you are going to build a bus stand in the middle of a lake, nobody is going to question it, right? So when we bring data, it is always a problem of power sharing kind of things. I mean, they are losing their control. So there is always a negative backlash. The second negative backlash is also with respect to criticism of past decisions and that kind of thing. It has always been difficult, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't happen anyway. What we do is we cultivate information into officers and political decision makers from the beginning itself, in the sense like it is not going to be just like because someone is sitting in power, we just go and meet over them, meet over some party or something like that. But what we do is, beginning itself, we start to show all these information and create awareness among the decision makers. We are not looking at awareness among public, we are looking at awareness among decision makers, so that we don't have to, I mean, they themselves will ask for doing it. And in many cases, that's what's happening. And once they see some samples, they just call us and they just say that, why don't you do it for my place? I am running out of options, kind of thing. So it happens a lot.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for responding to the question. So we do have quite a few questions, in fact, for you. So maybe you could take them in the chat, or we can mail them to you. But there is one. Christy, have you raised your hand? You may please ask your question.
Thank you, Ahita. I wanted to ask a question about what you said with regard to policy makers, the politicians and the administrators. So I wanted to specify about this Manita Tech Park. I mean, I've worked there, so I know that this place is kind of a place which is obviously flood prone. I mean, if you look at the area, it's quite deep, and it's a little obvious to anybody that's flood prone. And all through, I mean, throughout Bangalore, I've noticed such places. And so I want to ask this: are such projects undertaken because there was a lack of awareness? It doesn't seem so to me, but I might be wrong. That are such projects which are environmentally, not feasible, or which are environmentally harmful, taken up because there was not enough understanding at the time this was brought about, or is this because of the profit motive and that there's a lack of political will to stop such projects?
No, actually, it's a mixed one actually. So you have one set of aspirants from the local population. That is one. Second is people who are like, big projects means always big money. That is the second set of group. And the third is with respect to awareness, that is also lacking. I mean, it is coming from all of these angles. So, for example, when we say awareness is lacking, if you look at the regional master plan for Bangalore from the previous regional master plan, that is 2015, which is still actually the current one because the new one is not yet completed. So the RMP 2015, it gives a buffer over for the Manyata Tech Park. Around that place, there is a buffer. But that buffer is a very, very small buffer. If you look at the entire Manyata Tech Park and the buffer around it, the buffer will be occupying just 5% or 10% of space. This is because the planners really didn't have any understanding how flooding will happen or any of those things. So when I go and show these models, that is the first time they are seeing it. So there is a lack of awareness. So they do not know what is happening. Second is there is a thing about land availability, and those also come into play. So agricultural lands are the first ones that have to go, and which are privately owned. So for that purpose, actually, and those landowners, they also want to sell their land. I mean, the previous owners of that place are farmers, and they can't sit next to a big metropolis and stay in farming, right? So that is an aspiration that they are coming from. They want to sell their land, they want to make money, and their kids have to, I mean, they want to be rich. That's the entire idea. So they are also having those aspirations. When we say that these kind of environmentally problematic decisions are being made, it is not a decision that is made just by the the rich or the politicians, because there is a huge support from the government. I mean, the public as well. It is happening like that. They are not aware of these floods and everything. They are like, once buildings come in, everything is sorted out. That's the entire thought process around it. Anyway. But it's a mix. I can answer that in personal chat also.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Raj sir, for taking the session. It was very informative, and we all appreciate you answering a few of the questions that the participants asked. Now I will request Ms. Monmi to take over. Please go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Priyanka. It's an honor to be here. And I'm sure last 2 days have been very fruitful. And good morning, everyone. And I'm mostly going to talk about, how youth plays a very important role, a very significant role in, in how they bring about ICT solutions can be used and for environmental sustainability at this esteemed platform. Let me just share my screen. Let me know if it is reflecting.
See it now.
Yes, it's visible.
Yeah. Okay. Is it visible?
Yes, ma'am, it's visible. Please.
Okay. Okay. So let me give you a brief introduction about TERI, about where I work, and it's an independent multidimensional organization with capabilities in research and policy, consultancy, and implementation. It is pioneered conservation and action in the energy, environment, and climate change and sustainability space for over 4 decades. And the Institute's research and research-based solutions have had a transformative impact on the industry and communities. Let me take you to the slides of my presentation. Just yeah, is it? Do you see the next slide, the second slide?
No, it's not in the presentation mode. It is showing in the.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's visible now.
Is it fine?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. So as I was saying, I'm mostly going to talk about, I'm trying to give you a few examples because the area that I work with, it's called the Environment Education Awareness area. And we do a lot of, youth projects. And as the name goes itself, it's environment education. And it's basically, providing building capacity for students and for the youth on environment and sustainability. And we see how technology has basically connected both. And so yeah, so as a youth of this planet, we realize that our stakes are very high. It is only through action, however little or big, we can change the world for better. So equipped with this modern education and technological know-how, today's youth has the utmost ability and the potential to compete with any individual of any age group. So approximately 90% of young people, nowadays, and with the COVID situation, we have seen using the internet on a daily basis, with 50% around of youth that are most, always connected to the internet. And with everything going digital, the internet is and will remain one of the main influencers on today's young generation. Youth plays a significant role as the building blocks of the society and have the potential and the charisma to effect change in the status quo of the society. And for this precisely, it's important that they get involved and express their opinions and issues, because now it's the opportunity to create and shape the internet that they will use in future years. But as we see, with the growing demand also for digital technology, and it is often seen that there have been many challenges faced by the environment. Like, for example, like other presenters also have mentioned about the challenges, about the e-waste problem, about the technology, right from, say, replacement rather than repair. So most of the sectors, what they do is they are based on the fundamental concept of replacement rather than repair, or the growing e-waste problem. And, one of the key requirements for digital technology is to have electricity to function. And as industry and society have become increasingly dependent on electricity for production, exchange, and consumption, and the demand for electricity continues to rise, and also it has a direct impact on the climate change. But having said that, rapid industrialization is changing the way we observe and understand and interact with our ecosystems. The opportunity of digital technologies have been explored in the context of circular economy and how emerging technologies could facilitate the transition from the current linear economic model towards a more responsible one. Although technology has caused many environmental and social problems, but it is also key to addressing the environmental degradation, climate change, say food scarcity, waste management, and other pressing global challenges. So keeping pace with the changing times, it is essential to provide youth with the productive platforms to work on aspects of socio-economic environment interface. And this includes dissemination of best practices, not only from within the country, but also across the nations, and which basically a combination of a positive spirit attained largely by drawing on the inputs received from young change makers across the country. So I'll just talk about the area. So as I was mentioning, youth sector has been very important to digitalization. And as young people see things from a very different perspective and can think outside the box in order to find solutions and shape great proposals about the issues and future of the internet. Realizing that an environmentally conscious society can be created only if youth are empowered with sufficient knowledge, skills, attitude, and values. So Terry has dedicated environment education and awareness group that serves towards addressing a need for education for sustainable development issues, addressing different sustainable issues through academic institutions and society at large. Right from, as you can see here, the goal is to engage and empower youth and focusing on, these issues, different issues. We have different, target groups, and aim has always been to prepare youth in both schools and youth for leadership roles in the institutions, communities, and cities through intensive training, facilitate understanding of innovations and sustainable practices in youth segment, develop competencies in young people to integrate sustainability in thoughts, practices, and action. So here, we work with, right from schools to communities on various environmental issues. So considering that, more than 50% of youth are almost always connected to the internet, and with everything going digital, the internet and will remain one of the main influences on today's young generation. The teaching tools are adopted to design and deliver innovative information, education, and communication platforms through, right from imparting knowledge, where we have books, posters, handouts, and etc. that have been, we try to develop that. And say building skills and competences, we try to do it through workshops, seminars, and, campaigns, training sessions, and enabling action, which in order to encourage these young people to take ownership of the goals and explore how they apply to themselves and their communities, and providing tools. And that has always been the aim, always been the goal. That is, because educational institutions, they play a vital role in supporting the transformation of the world through sustainable development by being the drivers of, knowledge creation, multi-stakeholder dialogue, and so on. So various platforms like, board games, I will be showing in my next slides as well, like board games, digital games have been provided, and, where youth could be a part of a larger community. So, while, education can bring about a fundamental shift in how we think and act and discharge our responsibility towards one another and the planet, technology and innovation also plays a critical role in expediting transition to a sustainable mode of development. And it is being run through the youth. I'm just sharing an example of a past project. It was called the New Zealand India Sustainability Challenge, and which brought together youth from New Zealand and India to address some of the key challenges on the environment. It was a competitive mode where they had the different universities from India, across India and New Zealand participated, and they had to present they participated in the challenge, and they had to present their ideas. So these presentations, they included ideas as bedded as software to reduce energy consumption, and window blinds. These are the top three, basically top three projects that were selected. And the team Vaccibid, as you can see, they have gone to New Zealand as a inter exchange program within New Zealand universities. And these students, Vaccibid is from Manipal Institute. So right from say software to reduce energy consumption, window blinds they use window blinds which were made using the broken photovoltaic cells. Health platform that was used, that used beaded bracelets to store vaccination data of children from migrant communities, and this was done by Vaccinate. Then we had these students, actually they developed a gaming app to promote awareness on sustainability amongst children as weight And we also had examples of how the cow dung was used as an alternative to firewood or for cremations, and also using household garbage to create cooking fuel for the underprivileged through a no-frill system. This informed us. There's all this students, I mean, they were just asked to design their ideas and to present it. And this involved, I mean, this showed how informed us the the potential of the young people who are the most digitally advantaged, full of creative ideas, and most importantly, they have a selfless commitment for making it a reality. This interventions, I mean, reflected how best practices are shared and taken up at a both right from local, regional, and global level. So we shouldn't, the idea here is to to just let you know that we shouldn't let ourselves not explore the environment sector through digital technologies. So this have been I mean, this were the students themselves who have created it. So another example that we have been we have projects, and one of them was the Green Hackathon, and which is an annual competition for students and for both schools and colleges. And that actually was in Bangalore, and it was basically to devise and demonstrate innovative tech-based hacks. The ultimate goal of green technology was to replace practices and methods that damage or deplete the natural resources, and with alternate environmentally benign, economically efficient, and socially equitable practices that are sustainable. So Green Hackathon was one of the examples. Another, I could, I mean, I've just placed 2-3 examples of what, how the technology has actually, brought together, and how, we are having a relationship with the environment. And, I mean, this is like, we have been talking about, creating awareness. So through youth, we are trying to, build awareness amongst themselves. And because we know that they have the potential to, do something. So another example was the a project that we have. It's called the Green School Project. It's basically creating awareness and understanding about the environmental issues. And different innovations of technology has been used in this program, like I have mentioned here. And the digital game that is called the Green Dumb the King's Estate, and it was developed in the format of the popular board game that is the Monopoly. And this was basically to create awareness and promote use of alternative sources of energy, and by just playing. And we also had this board game with a combination of a dart game and a Pictionary that was called the 5 P's of water sustainability. So the idea, I mean, the games that we try to develop also, it basically we try to promote a message on environment. And because these are the games, because we understand like, I mean, we try to give them an informal mode of learning. And we believe that this kind of games, through games and through, I mean, various other I mean, programs, this attracts the youth segment more. So, and we haven't adjusting to this norms of the new normal. We have, I mean, created, because of the COVID situation, the tools have transformed, and its learning spaces into digitized mediums to reach out to a large section of the target group. So it included right from webinars, discussion forums, opinion polls, online gamification, competition, and access to resource library. Two programs that have been mainly we have started to do is the Green Olympiad. And so this was initiated in 1999, and this time it actually we completed 20 years. And it's an annual written examination on environment that attracts participation from lakhs of school students, right from classes 4 to class 10. And this time we are introducing, in fact, classes 11 and 12 as well. And it is from it is both we have this exam both national and international. And so this program, which was always a written examination, which we have made it online. So this time we have because of the situation that has arisen, and we have tried to, keep it online. Next, we was, I'm just giving you a few examples that was done post-COVID. So this was the Green Boot Camp, and it was initiated, during the lockdown. And it was designed with a goal to provide opportunities to students for overall development through their online structure. Yeah, while they cope with the schools due to the pandemic. So another program that is going online is the Youth Climate Conclave, and it's basically an annual program. This is the second edition we are having. It's a competitive and educative mode of action where youth from across the country they have been invited to join. Okay, I think someone's mic is on. Anyways. Okay, they have been invited to join hands to address the issues of climate change, and so we have everything has been gone online, and we have these are a few of the initiatives that have been taken, and in fact we had an e-launch, and e-launch during this is a youth feature which would be having during the World Sustainable Development Summit. You can check it online, and it's there already. Another aspect I would like to address here is how we through internet, how we connect with the not only we are working, not only we should work with the national within the country, but also how we can connect with the international networks. So I would like to share here is the Sustainable Development Solutions Network, which is a youth initiative. It's a program of the United Nations Sustainable Development Solutions Network. It's called the SDSN. And this SDSN Youth, and it was established in 2015. And it was to train and equip young leaders and with the knowledge of, knowledge and resources to build a more sustainable future. So with its networks around and with only through online presence, so the SDSN youth has now 185 team members from over 35 countries, and so Terry that I work with is the regional host, and we have the whole our network is called the it's a part of SDS in South Asia. So South Asia covers India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Nepal, Bhutan. So they are the members of South Asian network, and we India, the Terry is the regional host there. So it has around 185 team members, and from over 35 countries, and leads both the global and the local initiatives. So right from the initiatives right from would be sustainable education, community sustainable or entrepreneurship. So each program follows a 3-step theory of change, like the educate and train the volunteers to ideate and collaborate in communities, and to implement and scale the solution. So main aim is to bring the global initiatives to think globally but act locally. So what we do is we try to bring out the local issues and local environmental issues, and we try to address that globally, and where we try to connect all the networks. So like I mentioned, so there are 35 networks, so we try to bring together everyone. So this is one of the initiative. I'm just giving you here a few examples of what the SDS and youth South Asia has been doing. And because we believe that they are the young innovators and the change makers who will bring them bring with them in a new era of governance and models of startups to develop technological solutions to address threats of the pandemic. So they have also they try to these are done by the Sustainable Development Goal hubs, which are called the SDG hubs, and adjusting with the new norms, and with the COVID situation now. These programs, they have also tried to tried to go online, And as you can see, I mean, I've just faced few examples. I mean, like how the Canadian SDG hub is actually, they try to. We have a SDG hub in India, and which is done by Cadre School of Advanced Studies. And so we have other institutes as well. So this is how they are trying to connect to the youth. And so right from I mean, these are just pictures from the online online use of how digital technology has been used and how they are trying to connect with the whole globally. That's it with these thoughts. And I would like you to, I would like all of you to draw your attention to the youth and the future of this country. So with the rapid growth of technology, I mean, it's an opportunity for the youth to get involved and keep having a chance to promote innovations, and through your networks and and campuses, which are a budding ground for ideas and innovations. I wanted to share some examples through my presentation of how youth can become the agents of change, and how through the use of ICT impact can be created. So just last lines. I mean, small changes could make the world, and changing impacts of I mean, if sustained over for a long period of time. So let's not jeopardize the earth or our successors. So with this, thank you so much. I end my presentation here. And if anyone have any questions.
Thank you, ma'am, for the insightful presentation. Actually, we are a bit short on time, so I would request if you can take the questions on the chat.